are not very good at risk management. If you want my unfiltered view, and yes, I realize that we're recording this.
Well, I think I'm gonna leave that in. Well, welcome everybody, Carl, to Carl and Rick talk risk for this week. Rick, how are you?
Awesome. As I'm being told I can be unfiltered this week,
I
so
know
I
you
don't
may
know.
regret
We
this.
might have to put labels on this one.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So, well, first of all, I want to just say Premier Intelligent Risk for February 2025 is out. So I'm going to try to publish this video as soon as possible. That's so people get over there and read the new issue. I think there's a lot of good stuff, including a capstone article about a prison escape. And come on, I mean, so yeah, go over and read it. It's a good, really good issue, and join the LinkedIn group, and the authors are going to come and discuss their work on there. So okay, my plug is over for Intelligent Risk. Um, Rick, as usual, we should start with a joke at my expense. Um, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned something to you after the call. I told you, Rick, I'm so excited. I've signed up for OpenAI so I can use ChatGPT more. And I've asked ChatGPT to design me a risk simulation game. And it asked me a whole bunch of really good questions about, okay, well, do you want the same simulation for all the teams? What role are you playing? How do you know who wins? What metrics are you using? And I was like, oh, this is great. These are so detailed. This is better than I expected. So answered all the questions. At the end of all that, it even recommended an open source platform where you can put the code in and you can play the game online. And it told me, Carl, give me 4 days. I'll get back to you. Do you remember this conversation?
Barely, but anyhow, go
Okay.
on.
You laughed at my face and said, Carl, 4 days, ChatGPT, that's madness. Something's not right. Turns out you were correct. It did nothing in 4 days. I got really excited. Kept asking it, are you almost there? What have you got so far? Can I answer any more questions? And it kept on pushing me back and it said, well, in 3 hours, I'll have something for you. In 2 hours, have some patience. I apologize for the delay. And this went on for about a day. And eventually I was like, it's not gonna, it's lying to me. It's produced nothing. And yeah, it produced absolutely nothing in those 4 days and kept me waiting. So yeah,
Sounds like ChatGPT has got promoted to middle management ranks.
yes, yes. This is beyond hallucination. This is really. Anyway, so I was quite frustrated. I gave it one more try, and I lowered my sights and asked it. I want to build a simulation in the browser. So give me the HTML code, and the JavaScript and whatever else. And it did that, and it's playable. I can actually, it's all text based, so it'll tell you the scenario that's playing out, and it gives you three options, and you can see how your capital's changing and your reputational risk are changing. It's very basic, but it does sort of what I want. But then as I give it more instructions and build on the complexity, it undoes stuff that it already did, and it doesn't build on what it's given you before. And my tech friends have told me that, well, it's a language model. It's just putting language together. It's not a reasoning engine. So don't
Well, you
expect
want
too
to know
much.
something? First off, all joke aside, by the way, we have not scripted this at all. So I had no idea what was coming today. In fact, that's why we had such a rough start, which I hope you leave the rough start in there because
Oh
I'm
yeah.
still talking while you hit the record button. But I am going to use this. I'm going to hold up production on my book. Not that it's in physical production, but I'm going to, I seriously want to include a chapter of your experience in my book because this is exactly what my book on AI versus complex adaptive systems versus digitization is about. And this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Now, I have no idea what direction you plan to go with this.
Yes.
But I can go on for 90 minutes on my design of a simulation, but go ahead, you go.
That's what I want to speak about. So first of all, I'm not going to divulge why I'm working on a risk simulation game. It's a secret project at the moment. I hope it is going to be used in the future. But I was hoping to brainstorm with you what a risk simulation game might look like. In my head, the first place is a case study, right? SVB. So you put your teams, your competitors at the beginning of SVB. News is just broken that depositors are starting to withdraw funds. What do you do? And I guess you need to make a multiple choice, and basically the simulation plays out, and you make choices about how you should react to that. That's as far as I've got so far. What do you think?
Okay, well, first off, I've designed several simulations for several different companies, most specifically focused on risk, but on other things. Let me, and I've done it, and I think it's not egotistical of me to say that most years it's also been the highlight of the MBA program at Dalhousie University where I teach. Okay. And I first presented this idea, albeit when I was on sabbatical, and we were starting redesigning our MBA program. I came in one day on my sabbatical and proposed this, and everyone in the room sat there totally silent, and then they all broke up laughing, kind of like I laughed when you said that ChatGPT was going to give you a great result after 4 days. Okay. And it's what I call unstructured simulation. Okay. And just bear with me for a couple minutes, and then I'll explain why it works the way it does, and also why it might be a massive failure. Mm. But before we get going on that, anyone who's done an MBA or a master's program or any type of B school program will have done some form of a simulation. And Mark Strap being one of the most popular, and there's various others. By the way, when I was doing my MBA back when computers were like dinky toys, interesting note is I somehow managed to bankrupt the company on the very first round, and they had to reset the entire game. So that was obviously my career in finance, which, by the way, turned out to be quite successful. Thank you very much. But in most computer simulations, most simulations are computer simulations, which is exactly that. They're code. Mm-hmm. And code, by definition, is not complex in our sense of complicated versus complex.
Right.
Code is, by definition, complicated. And so when you say, a series of choices, you're talking about a series of discrete choices. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you're talking about your choices in isolation of the world's choices, other people's choices.
Yeah.
Okay. And thirdly, you are totally ignoring adaptive complexity. Mm-hmm. So in my unstructured simulation, we basically have the class divided into 10 teams. Okay. At the beginning of the simulation, which, by the way, runs over 3 days, or traditionally ran over 3 days, I have 10 envelopes in my hand at the front of the room. The teams come up and they're told, A, what their role is. And I'll give you a specific example. One team was told that they were Martha Billis. There's a rumor that in the market that she's thinking of selling her shares, and your breakout room is room XYZ. So, by the way, none of the students know who Martha Billis is, and 99.9% of the people listening to this, including Canadians, have no idea who Martha Billis is, but she's arguably one of the most powerful business people in Canada. Okay? Excuse me. The second group was told that they were the management team of Walmart. third group was told that they were the management team of the dealership network of Canadian Tire, which for those people who don't know, Canadian Tire, roughly equivalent to Home Depot, a combination of Home Depot and Pep Boys, a combination of a home hardware store and a auto DIY store chain, and they also have other stuff and kitchen appliances, small kitchen appliances, etc.
Yeah.
That is in basically any place in Canada that can be called a town. Okay? And 7 groups were told that they're management consultants. Now, any of the groups were told, management consultants were told there's a rumor in the market that Martha Billes is thinking of selling her shares. As your managing director, you better get a piece of that by the time I get back on Monday or you're toast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that they were told, and what their room was, i.e. their breakout room for their quote-unquote head office.
Okay.
Everyone looked at me like, that's all
What
you're going
now?
to tell them?
Yeah.
Like, Rick, no one's going to know who Martha Billes is. Martha Billes owns all, or virtually all, of the voting shares of Canadian Tire, one of Canada's most iconic and important dealer franchise networks. Okay? You know, the investment bankers who are told, the 7 groups that were told that they're investment bankers, they're not going to know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Walmart Group's not going to know what to do. And here's the point. When you go into work each and every day, the most important decisions are based upon things that you don't really know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But here's the key thing. 7 groups were investment bankers. There's only 3 potential investment banking clients. Okay. So immediately, once they figure out, oh, gee, well, we ought to get hired by Martha Billes, or we ought to get hired by Walmart, or we ought to get hired by Canadian Tire. Okay. 7 doesn't go into 3.
Yeah.
And the students figured it out pretty quick. And also with the 4 groups that eventually, after a day, didn't get an assignment, they had to pitch to me, and then I would become another competitor buyer for this group. So all of a sudden, wow, you think that you got it all sorted out? Poof! All your well-made plans go up in the air.
Okay. Yeah.
And we literally had kids sleeping over in the business school building, literally working around the clock, reworking all their plans, reworking all their evaluations, reworking what the acquisition strategies would be, what the post-acquisition operations would be. And the students were exhausted and exhilarated because they'd already done 2 computer simulations in which they spent the first hour reverse engineering the computer simulation. Let's put in this weird result, see what happens. Let's put in this weird result and see what happens. And very quickly, you can figure out the elasticity of the computer algorithm.
Right.
And everyone, assuming that you have half intelligent people, come to the same solution, which everyone goes home at the end of the second hour, and the remaining 3 days are just formality.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So, and by the way, I did something very similar in a corporate setting. The corporation will remain nameless for obvious reasons, but corporation was rolling out a new financial product. They put almost 400 people through a 2-week risk management training program. And they want to test is a wrong word, but put through a dry run the risk management strategies that they learned over this 2 weeks, which, by the way, you have to realize is a huge investment. Now, the risk training, took place over several years, but it's 2 weeks worth of, 10 working days worth of risk management training.
Okay.
And we're going to have a huge conference. All the senior executives were there. They come together for the final session. to present their results. And on every one of their tables, every one of the group's tables was one of those little pink notes while you were out. I
Yeah.
put the Wall Street Journal called and had this question to ask, which, by the way, was a real life situation I had to deal with in real time.
Okay.
Here's the thing: the situation that the Wall Street Journal called about, that quote unquote in the simulation they were going to press with the next morning, no one had dealt with.
Uh-huh.
And management realized that their 2-week training program, for which they spent a huge amount of money, had trained people who knew a lot of things but had no freaking clue how to think about risk.
Okay.
And so your simulation has to be about thinking. Yes, it can use knowledge, but mainly it has to be about thinking. It has to include competitive, because anyone who thinks that risk management is not competitive is fooling themselves. It has to lead to adaptation, and it has to lead to complex adaptation. And it's the complex adaptation, it's the adaptation, it's the competitiveness, and it's the thinking that computer simulations cannot do. Computer simulations are awesome at the knowing. I can't raise this finger individually. By the way, I'm not flipping people off. Okay? Computer simulations are awesome at simulating the knowing. By definition, they cannot do the thinking, they cannot do the competitive, they cannot do the adaptation, and they cannot do the adaptive complexity.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And anything that takes ChatGPT, 4 days to do is just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've
And
realized
that's not a bash on ChatGPT. In interest of full disclosure, I've bought the paid, or sorry, I've subscribed to the paid version, albeit not the Uber corporate version, but the personal version. I'm a subscriber to that, paid subscriber to that. I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's awesome and wonderful, but you have to realize that ultimately it's a digital system, and digital systems do not think, and digital systems do not do complex things.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that was my rant. So
No, that is helpful. I'm curious how you ended the 2-day simulation. Is it with presentations to you? Like, how do you? Because I think that's
what we did was we told Martha Billis that she had to make a decision.
okay.
Okay, she had to make a decision. A, are you going to sell the company? B, if so, to whom and for what?
Okay.
And in the end, she decided not to. Subsequent to that, we've done several other things. We've done a well-known tech executive of whether or not they're going to get fired.
Okay.
And by the way, a lot of these play out real life. So, for example, this year we did a major junior hockey team in Canada that was potentially going to be relocated.
Okay.
Okay, so A, was it going to be relocated, and if so, to where? And so we had the competing teams be cities where they wanted it relocated to.
Okay.
And 4 months later, the rumor came out in the open, and 5 months later, the team moved.
Oh, in real, for real.
Oh, in real life.
Okay.
These are all real life situations. So
Okay.
these are things that are in very, very, very early stages. You hear basically the week before this, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I scan, the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th web pages of the major websites for a little thing that may or may not be happening. And we bring it to life. So we did things on Papa John's when its owner made some comments about whether or not he should be ejected as the CEO and owner. Well, he couldn't be ejected as owner, but be ejected as CEO.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done a variety of things. We've done government-centered things, public policy-centered things.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Hmm. All right. Well, yeah.
so there's maximum ambiguity. There up front,
Yeah.
there's maximum VUCA.
Yeah.
And in a
Yeah.
traditional academic setting, people say, well, maximum VUCA simply won't work. And to be quite
Yeah.
frank, a couple of times, we've done it now for 15 years. There's been two or three where it's been, one of my
Yeah.
favorite was the chicken wars. We had chicken wars,
Okay.
chicken sandwich wars in the US. And so the day before the simulation began, I did a poll of everyone coming into the business school building on what their favorite brand of chicken sandwich was.
Okay.
And the objective was we had three teams, again with marketing, 7 marketing consultants. And the objective was to have the highest brand recognition at the end of the simulation. And so I did a exit survey of everyone leaving the building 4 days later of what their most recognizable brand of chicken sandwich was.
Okay. So they basically have to figure out how to convince people in the building that
And
they have
this
the
was
best.
all playing out real time while there was a massive advertising war going
It's,
on TV and print, social
yeah.
media advertising with Popeyes and KFC and Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, etc., all saying that they had the best chicken sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's great photo. We had one group that essentially hacked the jumbotron that we had for stock quotes and other financial news in the building. We had people dressed up in various chicken suits, including yours truly after it was all over. We had one group that paid a bunch of students to dress up as Colonel Sanders. Uh, but I was all creating a marketing strategy, a marketing brand,
Mm.
not finance related.
Yeah.
By the way, these are generally also integrated. So you generally have to integrate strategy, finance,
Yeah.
marketing, the whole 9 yards.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. MBAs. No. Okay. Um, yeah. There's a lot of things you said that I want to imply. It has to be virtual. So some of the complexity
Uh,
stuff is
yeah, that can be done virtually.
that's true. That's
Hate
true.
to tell you, you and I are interacting right now, and we're what, 4 hours,
Yeah.
5 hours apart. As
Yeah. 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 No, that's true. Yeah. Doesn't have to all be yeah. It's the yeah, the multiple choice part really just puts you in a funnel, right? There's so little wiggle room. And then yeah, I'm certainly not advanced enough to make like, okay, if you choose this option, then new options open up that you can take. I'm not going to design a game that complicated. So
but
uh
you see, with my strategy,
hmm,
is it designs itself organically,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you get results that you as a designer could never ever ever expect.
Then I have a question for you based on that. How do you judge the results of the teams fairly
Well, first
without,
off,
yeah,
that's a different question.
yeah,
Okay, okay, and we can talk offline about making a quote unquote competition with first, second, and third.
right,
My objective is learning.
yeah, yeah,
And here's the thing is almost an hour after the students get over their initial shock of and what the heck is this all about, uh, I start to see first off the students are way more energized than they ever could be otherwise.
mm,
I almost always get a flood of comments, man, this is so different than the textbook. And our students actually go in a corporate residency in the middle of their MBA, 8-month corporate residency, and I get a flood of emails during their corporate residencies. Rick, you won't believe it. This played out almost exactly like the unstructured simulation. You would not believe how that experience helped here.
Wow. Okay.
Um, so, and the fact that you know, up to 15 years later, students are still talking about it.
Yeah.
Students will email me when simulation week, unstructured simulation week comes around. Hey, Rick,
Yeah.
you haven't figured out what you're going to do yet?
Yeah.
And the reality is what I do almost no work.
Yeah. They need to figure it out. All right. During the.
Well, there's a lot of prep on my part, but I'm going to read the papers anyway.
Yeah.
There's no complex formulas or scenarios for me to work out. Like literally, I rate four quick paragraphs. The toughest part is getting the rooms booked, which, by the way, I don't even do that. There's another person who does that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it all goes organically. I have no idea how it's going to go. I have no idea how it's going to wind up. I will tell you, the first year we actually had to stop it early because the students were getting too much into it.
Okay. Interesting. I must say the I've never done anything like that. I'm a little jealous here. But the closest I came was the Rotman International Trading Competition.
Yeah,
Um, uh, that was fun because you're put in a group and basically prices are moving all around. You're watching the ticker, and you have to learn open outcry. You have to
yeah,
learn how to communicate with your. You might have a team upstairs doing the modeling and stuff,
yeah,
and they have to tell you when to buy, how much to buy, using hand signals. And
yeah.
that was the fun part. Is like figuring out all these hand signals and how to fake hand signals just in case other teams are watching and stuff. Still remember that to today.
By the way, unfortunately, a lot of that's gotten away the dodo bird
Yeah,
for that competition because it's now almost all algorithmic trading.
I bet. Yeah, and that was a tiny slice of it
Yeah,
our year, and we used to get an alumni to kind of
but
figure it
again,
out for us.
but again, wasn't that the highlight where it
Oh yeah,
was massive VUCA?
yeah.
And
Nope.
you're trying to learn the night before, this means sell, this means
Yeah,
buy, and
yeah. Yeah,
you
no,
know,
it's yeah, like yeah, nobody wanted it to end. Like the
yeah.
buzz in the room afterwards was just incredible. So yeah. Okay, you've set a very high
We talk
standard.
offline about a lot of the issues that you had,
Yeah.
but this is what I've done a lot of risk management training, as both as an employee of firms and as a consultant, and also as a university professor. You got to have VUCA.
Hmm.
You got to have competition. Risk management does not work in isolation.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, you got to avoid digitization whenever possible. You have three alternatives,
Yeah.
which I realize is much, much easier said than done. And you've got to have complexity, adaptive complexity, because,
Mm.
you know, if you don't know if your simulation doesn't have VUCA, it's not a risk simulation. You may as well
Hmm.
just, give them a multiple choice test on, from the textbook.
That's what it feels like now. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna be yeah, asking for more help on this. Okay. Thanks, Rick, for sharing your experience with this. It's really good, and yeah, I've got plenty of time to develop this, so I'm glad I'm talking to you at the beginning. Um, Great, good chatting. Well, let's reconnect again next week. We're already talking about our next guest after last week interviewing Eva. I think that was quite well received. And if watchers have suggestions for guests or ideas for topics, share them with us. We'd be keen to hear. Until next week. Cheers.